to start off by thanking What Impact for what has been an incredible summit. I know it's the first one that they've done, and I think it has been an absolutely grand success. Quick shout out to Ashley as well. I absolutely love those sessions. So thank you so much for that, Ashley. I'm going to start us off on our reflection. So we're going to start off by talking about what was the most important learning we took away from the day. Certainly when I think through everything today, I know there were a lot of comments on collaboration, which I personally loved hearing. My personal favorite part of the session, which had a massive impact on me, was the session about burnout. And actually, I know as VCSEs, and I'm personally a managing director for a company, and I know how hard it can be to wear many different hats. And actually, if you don't take the time to take care of yourself, you will suffer from it. So actually being able to take proper care of yourself is really valuable. Some of the tips and tricks in there I definitely will be taking into my day. So we've had a bit of a chat backstage about some of the things that we loved about today. Tara, do you want to kick us off on some of the things that you took away from today's sessions?
I'm happy to. Hi, I'm Tara Spence. I'm the Chief Executive of Home Start Suffolk, which is a county-wide family support charity where the support's delivered by volunteers. I think there are so many takeaways from today because it's just been a wonderful day. I think for me, it maybe is the things that I haven't heard as well as the things I have heard. So we've heard from, some really strong people who are either delivering services or buying services. But I think what I find quite challenging as a supplier is the availability of kind of high quality training and guidance and skill around procurement and social value. So I think there's something about, what role do our infrastructure bodies play? I know we heard in one of the last sessions from an infrastructure provider, but actually having, as a voluntary sector organisation, it's so important to have access to some really high quality training and to be able to gain the skills to be able to bid for services, bid confidently. So I want to understand really a bit more about actually what role infrastructure play, and actually wouldn't it be amazing if we saw our public sector procurement leads on organisations funding our infrastructure bodies really appropriately to ensure that our voluntary sector do gain the skills and training to be able to bid for those services.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for that, Tara. Emilio, you shared with us that you're sort of new to the VCSE arena. What did you take from today? I'd be really curious to hear from somebody new to the area what stood out to you.
Yeah, so I'm Emilio. I raised £100,000 at Imperial College to build a community garden, and now I'm working towards scaling that impact by establishing a charity that helps places of worship build community gardens in the grounds. So my background was in startups and corporate, and nothing about social value and social impact. But now kind of moving into this space, I think what I've learned today is definitely that there is a lot of infrastructure, both from the design and bidding process, but also the measuring the social impact of your initiative that is very, especially at the early stages of where I'm in, really good to hear and understand now, so I can kind of adopt those as early as possible, so that our work is as effective as possible when we're trying to get the first bids. So for me, I think it's learning that, it's learning all the different toolings that were mentioned today, and all the different policies that we can work with.
Yeah, amazing. And Anna, what about yourself?
Do you want to go?
Oh, sorry, no, just couldn't find the microphone. Thanks. I'm Anna, and I work for the Garden Classroom, and we support around 11,000 people, nature-deprived people, each year with nature connection programs in North London. And what I was saying backstage is that we very much see ourselves as a social value delivery partner. And so it was really interesting today to sort of look at the way that the landscape is shifting in that regard. And particularly, I was interested to hear about the kind of government priorities and the way that the social value model and the PPN 02 is kind of moving towards the emphasis on the growing economy and growing and work and jobs and things like that. And it made me really reflect and sort of think about how I'm going to go back and talk to our CEO and our trustees about how we can think about our programs and how we can kind of speak to those priorities really, to make ourselves a more effective social value delivery partner and to be able to make those collaborations. That's what we really want to do, because we see the social value landscape as something that we could really buy into, and it could really support us with funding a lot of our projects, but we need to talk about them in the right way. And the session on impact measurement again was really important in that regard, because it's something that I think we do it very regularly because we have to do it for funders, but obviously we need to do it in a way that is the right way, that is going to enhance those collaborations, enhance those partnerships, and hearing the different tools and the different measurements. I could sort of sit there and go, oh, that Tom's, yes, we could apply to that, that would apply to what we would do, but also, talking to our beneficiaries and seeing the impact and the change that our programs make on their lives. So I took away I really cherry picked from the sessions today, and I'm excited to go back and talk to our CEO and trustees about kind of where we can go forward and make ourselves just stronger as a potential partner, really.
Absolutely. And I think it was Nicola Lynch said something that I thought was super powerful earlier on, which was, and it started her talk, it was, whose impact is it anyway? And I think sometimes we forget about that a little bit. It was a really good positioning. I loved it. Thank you so much for that, Anna. And Shamil, talk to me. What did you take away from today?
Thank you, Desiree. Hi, everyone. I'm Shamil. Am I echoing? Sorry, I can hear myself. What I noted, or what I took away was just to confirm that, collaboration and partnership can be really strong. I'm not sure I'm echoing. Maybe I could double screen. That's why. Forming and adopting kind of collaborations really early and very well structured way can have, kind of really help everyone in the collaboration, making sure that everyone is kind of pulling resources, and it's not just for the sake of doing the bids, but actually it's a mindset shift, and also making sure that we are kind of tender ready, and making sure that we've got all our evidences, case studies, our internal understanding of procurement language is clear, and the whole process can be kind of much more, easy to understand, and so we can kind of prepare competitive bids and essentially deliver better outcomes for our clients. By the way, I'm Shamil. I'm the fundraiser at Refugee Action Kingston, and we are an independent charity based in Southwest London, supporting refugees of all backgrounds with a comprehensive range of supportive programs.
Amazing. Thanks, Shamil. Thank you. Shamil and Emilio, you both talked about bid writing, and actually backstage we were having a chat about the use of AI and technology to help facilitate the things that we do. Tara, you had some opinions on this. Do you want to take us through some of them?
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to. I think it came from the comment really around just kind of be slightly mindful and careful in using AI in bidding. I'm going to be honest, I'm probably a too much AI user now. I think I use it for everything. It's really for Christmas cocktails if anyone needs a really good use for it as well. I think for me, there's something around the expectations around AI in bidding. I think what we see quite regularly is buyers having very, very different guidance. If you bid to the NHS, they have really quite strict guidance around the use of AI. And I think then you may, go to something like a local authority who maybe have more flexibility around it. So I think for me, there's the takeaway one around checking your guidance and knowing actually what the expectation is. Knowing that AI doesn't give you everything, you've got to input really good information, because some of the information that comes out of it isn't as clear. It can make up some really, really good data that may not be accurate, and then you've got to kind of conform to this kind of made up data. But actually, I think for voluntary sector organisations, the use of AI does put you on a bit more of a level playing field when you've got limited resource, limited capacity, and sometimes limited skill base around social value and procurement and bidding. So I think that's something we need to think about in terms of training. What is the role for kind of our trainers in terms of actually how can we use AI appropriately in bidding, and how can it be supportive? Because we've got to recognise that voluntary sector organisations will use it. We have to use it because it saves us time, and it gives us skills we may not have. So actually we've got to think about what our systems, how our systems kind of interpret the use of AI going forward, and how we can use it more appropriately.
Absolutely. Amelia and Shamil, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Tara that I think we cannot get away from not using AI, and especially for the small charities like ours, it's lots of help in terms of when you're able to quickly kind of do lots of things, and it's basically having a to help or admin person who's doing lots of admin tasks for you. So I use in various kind of applications, and but it's really helpful. But obviously, I can see lots of donors and funders also having a clear guidelines on what how they're using it, and we need to remain kind of authentic with our voice and with our storytelling, and then about the impact we are delivering or outcomes we're achieving. Also kind of try, we need to be also careful. Obviously, we work with one of the most marginalized groups like refugees and people seeking asylum. So when we're telling their story, we need to be extra careful about data management and anonymity, confidentiality, and those things. So in terms of using AI, those whole things we all be considering, and we all be kind of taking into account.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, for me to add on that, at least, all the I like to say that our bid process is AI enabled, at least the ones that we had for the community garden, and the way that we try to use it strategically. So I refuse to have AI slop appear on our bid, so we don't let it generate our content. But
AI slop, that's good.
But we do kind of leverage it to be kind of a ghost marker for our bidding. So we would kind of give it all the information we can about the specific bid or fund that we're trying to put through, and then we put our bid per section and then have it tallied against what it believes the funder or the judges on their side are going to be thinking about, and then it kind of helps us. I mean, I can't remember who said it, but earlier in the summit, there was one of the top tip bits. Like number 2 was, have you answered the question? And this is like something that you hear from GCC until like you pass your A levels, right? And it's like, but it's true. Like, have we answered the question? I think sometimes AI can help you actually to say you've not answered this question at all, so you're going to do quite poorly. So I like to use it that way, at least.
Yeah, that's a great way to use it. Shima?
Can I make just one more point? Actually, in terms of the public tenders, they are quite like long, complicated language and documents. So AI could be quite good to kind of read through and give you a summary of what you need to do. So in that sense, actually, I would recommend using AI.
Yeah, I love that. So it potentially is more of a guide and a friendly mate to cross-check it for you. Yeah, very cool. Anna, are you still with us? I think your camera might have gone off.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely here. I can see myself. But
amazing. Oh, you're back. All right, perfect. So Anna, we were talking about funding, and that last session with forgive me, her name was
with Yen.
Yes, Yen. Oh, she was so good. With Yen, we were talking in the backstage about, and for everyone's benefit, I'm also a treasurer for a small charity called the Violence Intervention Project, which helps tackle violence with young people. And we talk often about diversifying funding strategies. So I'm also a finance background, and that, to me, diversifying is really important to build strength in your charity. but equally that can be a bit of a minefield. And we were talking a bit about core cost funding. Do you want to explore that a little bit, Anna?
Yeah, I think actually that's one of the things that actually makes the potential for social value quite interesting in terms of diversifying income. So absolutely, as a small charity, that's what we've been looking to do over the last couple of years. And this sort of feeds into actually what we're talking about with AI. We know that because a lot of charities are using AI, funders are getting absolutely overrun with applications, and therefore a lot of them are either closing, they're spending down, or they're really restricting the criteria that they will fund. So what we're seeing is that a lot of the doors that might have potentially been open to us in terms of sort of trusts and foundations and things like that are starting to reduce. Certainly what we see as the biggest challenge, absolutely, is our fundraising for core costs and full cost recovery. That is just so difficult. And I think that building long-term partnerships in terms of social value, looking to make those multi-year potentially, or feeding into contracts that potentially multi-year as a social value sort of delivery partner, would absolutely help us to diversify our income massively, our income streams massively, but also give us that potential for security more in terms of, as I say, that sort of multi-year approach, or being a long-term partner. And I think as long as we were talking when we were backstage about, as long as we appropriately set our boundaries and what we are happy to deliver as a social value delivery partner, I think those relationships could be really effective and prove a really good way of sustaining income for things like core costs, full cost recovery, potentially for the long term. So that's why I see it as a really exciting prospect. The social value is exciting for us, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now to run through another question. So what I'm going to ask everybody on the panel, what was the key thing that you took away that you're going to change as a result of the things that you learned today? So is there something that you heard today that now, as a result of that, you're going to do something slightly differently? Who wants to kick us off? Shamil, do you want to start us off?
Yes, happy to do that. I think I touched on that a little bit earlier on, that basically that, I'm going to go back and look at again our case studies, evidences, our procurement ready. So look at what I think it was Jane Lynch kind of recommended some of that kind of how to do bid, 8 steps to do it, and how to be ready for public tenders. So I'm going to look at that slides properly and go through that each checkpoint and make sure we've got all the documents ready before I can kind of start approaching our partners.
I love that. I'm sure Jane will be thrilled to hear that. It was Jane Lynch who had the 8 steps of collaborating.
Yeah.
Tara, what about yourself?
So I think there was a lot of talk around social value frameworks, which, I feel really comfortable with social value frameworks, but actually I think sometimes, and I think it was mentioned much earlier in the day, and I can't remember who, so I'm really sorry, but around kind of the social value versus social impact. Yes. And I think that as an organisation, I feel that we do social value really well. We do social impact extremely well, but actually what we don't do is articulate social impact sufficiently, because we utilise social value frameworks. We're talking about the data. We're not necessarily talking about the stories that we absolutely hold, but then we don't talk about them enough in that procurement space. So for me, the takeaway is to go back to the organisation and really just address how are we talking about our wider social impact, and not just actually focusing on our social value, our more formalised social value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found when Richard Carroll from Durham County Council was talking about the work that they were doing about actually identifying the needs of that community and making sure that what social value work is being done actually addresses that, was super powerful. Emilio, what about yourself?
Sorry, could you repeat the question just to make sure I got it right?
It was just what's the one takeaway that you're going to change as a result of the information you heard?
Yeah, so I think the takeaway is, for me at least, on the measuring tools. I think the TOM system was quite an enlightening presentation for me, at least, because part of our strategy is to match fund our grant funding with sponsored corporate sponsorship, and obviously for that, reporting on the impact of what every pound put into the system, what it's doing, or how much they're getting back on social return on investment is quite important. So being able to use, as it was said, a robust, objective, and tangible system based on data to measure that is kind of like, okay, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just adopt this. And then if we can say that we use this internally and put it on our slides, it kind of makes it much easier to, well, I'm hoping it will make it much easier to sell to corporates when it comes to it.
Yeah, absolutely. How about yourself, Anna?
Yeah, I'd echo what Emilio says. We definitely need to look at our impact reporting, perhaps sort of pivot it in a slightly different way. But going back to what I said earlier before, I think as well, what I want to go back and talk to you about is looking at the way that some of our projects are framed in terms of speaking to the social value model. We have a training department. We've got potential to expand into helping people to secure work, and I think that's probably what I will go back and emphasize, and you know, to make sure that going forward we're absolutely working on that kind of side of things in order to maximize potential social value partnerships, really.
Yeah, amazing. Right, I know Rick is coming up. Here he is. So I think that brings us to the end of our panel. Can I thank everybody on this panel, especially as VCSEs? It's really lovely to be able to hear from your perspective following such a wonderful day full of a lot of information. Thank you so much for joining me on the panel this afternoon and having your input. And again, just a massive thank you to What's Impact for what has been an incredible day.